Nice.
Right. So, morning again, everyone. We are on chapter 10 of Revelation. Last week we would have covered chapter 9, which brought to view the thunders. The trumpets, sorry. The trumpets, and we touched on two of the woes, right? We touched on two of the woes, which would have comprised of the fifth and sixth um, trumpet. Now, chapter 10, as I said last week, is a parenthetical chapter, meaning that it adds a parenthesis to what was previously studied, which is the trumpets. And it is a very important chapter. So I'm going to move pretty slow, and I may be a bit more engaging this morning because this chapter, if you miss it, then you miss everything,
Wow.
right? Now, for those who have been reading and restudying and looking over their notes and so forth, um, this chapter would be a very, it will be a blessing to you because you will start to see things coming together. So I'm just putting in a plug there for us to really go back and study what would have been presented before, right? So let's proceed this morning. So Revelation chapter 10 verse 1 says, "And I saw another mighty angel come down from heaven, clothed with a cloud, and a rainbow was upon his head, and his face was as it were the sun, and his feet as pillars, of fire." Now, based on Revelation chapter 2 verse 18, Revelation 1:15, and Daniel 10:6, this angel is no other than Jesus Christ. So this angel that John saw, it is actually Jesus that he saw, based on the description that we're seeing in 10 verse 1, Revelation 10 verse 1. Verse 2 says, "And he had in his hand," this is Jesus, "and he had in his hand a little book opened." So Jesus has this little book opened in his hand. And as I said, I want to be a little bit more engaging this morning. Can you tell me what this little book is? We would have encountered this in chapter 5, Revelation chapter 5. What is
Is that,
this little book?
is that the book that Daniel was told to close up?
Amen. You are
Same book?
correct. Yes. So this little book is the prophecies of Daniel that were sealed, right? So this is the sealed prophecy that was in Daniel. In chapter 5, we saw that the lamb slain was worthy to open this little book, right? Because he was the one who was set up to do so, right? So in his hand, he had a little book opened, and he set his right foot upon the sea and his left foot on the earth. So here we have Jesus with one of his foot on the sea and another foot on the earth. Now we want to look at what the feet symbolize, and then we're going to look at the sea. Right? We're going to leave the earth for a while, but by looking at what the foot symbolizes and what the sea symbolizes later on, um, we'll understand what the earth means. And I'm not too sure if I mentioned this. We won't be able to finish this chapter today. It will have to continue next week because I don't want to rush this, right? And it's a lot of information as well. So
Mhm.
let's look at what Isaiah says the feet symbolize. Isaiah 52 verse 7 says, "How beautiful upon the mountains are the feet of him that bringeth good tidings, that publisheth peace, that bringeth good tidings of good, that publisheth salvation, that saith unto Zion, thy God reigneth." Now we're going to look at what the sea represents, right? And this is taken from Revelation 17 verse 15. And he said unto me that the waters which thou sawest, where the horse sitteth, are people,
Hmm?
multitudes, nations, and tongues. Now, this word sea, in the book of Jeremiah and Isaiah, they use sometimes waters or rivers, but it represents the same thing. It represents people, multitudes, nations, and
Mhm.
tongues. So this is something
Mhm.
that we should memorize. So in sometime in prophetic language, waters or seas or rivers represents a vastly populated area, right? Peoples, multitude, nations, or tongues.
Yes.
Now, last no week before, we would have looked at this map. So I'm not too sure if you're seeing my mouse. I'm circling over Jerusalem, right? And we knew that from the study of Daniel that there were four kingdoms. And these four kingdoms came out of where? The Bible says that they came out of the sea,
Okay.
right? This sea represents peoples, nations, multitudes, tongues. All Daniel was shown is that these four kingdoms will rise up out of a vastly populated area. And this map shows the acreage where Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, and Rome would have fought over, right? So I'm going very slow this morning. So this would have been the acreage here, like Italy, Macedonia, Asia, Jerusalem, Judah, Egypt, and the uppermost part of Africa, right? So when the Bible talks about sea, it isn't representing what we would call the beach or the ocean. What it's saying prophetically, it is a highly dense populated area. And looking at the prophecies of Daniel, where these beasts arose from, where they strove, where they fought against each other, this was the province where they fought, right? So moving forward, is there any questions you all have? You all understand that?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
great,
yeah.
great.
Mhm.
Right, and here's Daniel 12:7. And I heard the man clothed in linen, which was upon the waters of the rivers. Now, it should be noted that when Daniel got his vision, Christ, the man in linen, he was only upon the waters, meaning that Daniel's main focus was in these provinces. He was specifically directed to these provinces. Why? As I previously mentioned, Babylon would arise here, Medo Persia, Greece, and then Rome. Right? So Daniel's vision, his dreams and visions was focused specifically to the waters or rivers or the sea, which denotes this area, this highly populated area where these wars and stuff took place. Right? So let's continue. But Revelation, though, it's both upon the waters and the earth. But we're going to get to that. We're going to get to that in the future, right? Let's continue. So, just to recap, and he, Jesus, had in his hand a little book, which is the opened. So the sealed book of Daniel is now being opened. And he set his right foot upon the seas. So from the time of Daniel, these events took place in the seas, but now his left foot is upon the earth, meaning that there are events that are supposed to take place wherever this earth is. Whatever it symbolizes, there are events that would take place in the earth. And again, this earth doesn't symbolize the actual entirety of the earth, as the sea does not symbolize the ocean or the beach, right? It's a specific province that we're going to look at. Now, let's look at Daniel chapter 12. But thou, O Daniel, shut up the word and seal the book, even to the time of the end. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased. And one said to the man clothed in linen, which was upon the waters of the river, take note, he is only upon the waters of the river, how long shall it be to the end of these wonders. And I heard the man clothed in linen, which was upon the waters of the river, when he held up his right hand and swear by him that liveth forever, that it shall be for a time, times, and half and a half. And when he shall have accomplished to scatter the power of the holy people, all these things shall be finished. Now, by now, there are certain keywords that should ring a bell in our head. When we hear time, times, and a half, or in some cases, time, times, and a half of times, automatically we are supposed to think 1260, 1260
Mm-hmm.
days or 1260 years. That is, by now, that is supposed to be automatic, right? So Daniel was shown this, what we call the dark ages, where the church now would be persecuted, right? Also, the time of the end, knowledge of the Bible shall be increased, right? So he was shown that. Now let's move on to Revelation chapter 10, verse 3. And cried with a loud voice as when a lion roareth. And when he had cried, seven thunders uttered their voices. So Jesus now opens this seal book of Daniel. And when he opens, John now hears seven thunders uttering their voices. Um, Looking back at what we would have studied, we would have seen the seven churches. We would have seen the seven seals, and we were currently going through the seven trumpets. We encountered six thus far, right? So there's one still outstanding, and each seven that we saw was some specific event that would have taken place, right? So we can assume that these seven thunders are some events that are to take place.
People. Mm-hmm.
All right, let's move forward. So we're going to read from verses 4 to 6. Revelation 10, verses 4 to 6. And when the seven thunders had uttered their voices, I was about to write, and I heard a voice from heaven saying unto me, seal up those things which the seven thunders uttered, and write them not. Pause. So these events were shown to John, and then God says, no, don't write them. So this is what we just read there, right? So we are not told what these events are. So let's continue. And the angel which I saw standing upon the sea and upon the earth lifted up his hands to heaven, and swear by him that liveth forever and ever, who created heaven, and the things that therein are, and the earth, and the things that therein are, and the sea, and the things which are therein, that there should be time no longer. And what this really means is that this is the end of prophetic time, right? So time no longer means the end of prophetic time. So let's pause there a little bit. So Daniel now was shown a vision of seven thunders. Now, unfortunately, based on God's wisdom, he said, here, what? Seal that up. Do not write what is to transpire. But here now, we are shown that at the time no longer, or the end of prophetic time, sorry, let me just recap. The angel, who is Jesus, standing upon the sea and upon the earth, swore to God, the Father in heaven, that there will be time no longer, which is the end of prophetic time. So, what we have here is that this end of prophetic time is linked to the completion of the seven thunders. So we are not told what they are, but we know that the end of prophetic time, or time no longer, is linked to the seven thunders. So when the seven thunders expire, it will bring us to the end of prophetic time. Now, we need to know what is the end of prophetic time, or where was that derived from? Obviously, there was a book that was opened. So a lot of the things that are being shown to John is derived from that previous revelation, which is the book of Daniel. In Daniel chapter 8, verses 14, we encounter the 2300 day slash year prophecy. It says, "And he said unto me, Unto 2300 days, then shall the sanctuary be cleansed." Now, if you were to go back to Daniel and read, Daniel had no understanding what the angel was telling him here, because it wasn't the question that Daniel asked, right? Daniel asked, "What is to befall his people?" And then the angel just randomly quoted this number, right? But when we go to chapter 9 of Daniel, he's given some more information concerning the Jews. When they would be cut off, they were supposed to be allotted a 70 week period to do a specific work. But also a start time was given for this 2300 day prophecy, which we see in verses 25 of Daniel 9. It says, "Know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and to build Jerusalem unto the Messiah the Prince," and the text continues. So when Artaxerxes gave that command, which is recorded in Ezra 6, 7, and 9, this is the start point from which we are to calculate the 2300 day prophecy. So Daniel was given this prophecy, right? And he was given the start date to this prophecy, right? 457 BC. So this line denotes the 2300 days or years, right? We know when it began. It began 457 BC. And what Revelation is saying, the end of prophetic time will bring us here to the end of this time period. Now, all we need to do is minus these two figures, and we're going to get what time this is. But we're not going to do that now. Let's just leave that there. We understand how we can calculate prophetic time to reach to the end of prophetic time. And we understand that when we reach to the end of prophetic time, the seven thunders, which would have been revealed to John, would be complete, right? We don't know what they are, but at that time, they will be complete, right? So let's move on. So we're going to pause just to review. So one, John sees a mighty angel. This angel is Jesus. The angel had a little book in his hand, which was the sealed book or the prophecies of Daniel. The angel had a prophetic message from that little book, and his foot was upon the sea. And we understand what the foot is, the proclamation of the gospel, to proclaim the good news. And this was proclaimed in the sea. And we saw the sea represents a geographical location where those four beasts rose up. And the earth, we don't understand what the earth is yet, right? 4, Jesus reveals the seven thunders, which are prophetic events, to John, then instructed him not to write them down. And 5, he points John, and by extension the readers, to the end of prophetic time, or time no longer, as the Bible quotes. This time is linked to the seven thunders and the conclusion of the prophetic events. So let's just pause and breathe. So you all, you all with me, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, brother. Kevin. Morning.
Morning.
Okay. And you mentioned the earth's your second slide or your third slide represent the earth represent like good news or something.
Oh, the foot. So
The
that
foot.
is Isaiah 52. So this is it here. So foot represents like the proclamation of good
Of
news, of the gospel. Let's just sum it up, of the gospel. So what happened is that when Christ's foot was upon the waters,
Mm-hmm.
and we know the waters is a geographical location where those four beasts came up, the Jews were supposed to really proclaim the message, and God permitted them to go into subjugation to do that. Right? So we know the location, we understand what the seas or the waters or the rivers represent. It represents, well, I kind of skip forward there. Right. It represents this location, and we would have gone through Daniel, Babylon, Medo Persia, Greece, and Rome. So the sea
Mm-hmm.
represents a specific location. Now, where the earth now, we don't know as yet. We haven't revealed that as yet. But if the sea represents a specific location, the earth must also represent a specific location as well, right? Where
Okay.
God plants his feet. And if it is he plants his feet there, then there has to be some sort of proclamation of some gospel, good news, etc. Right?
Understand. Yeah.
Right. Any questions before we move forward? All right. So, just to recap, so John he saw the seven thunders, was instructed not to write them, and we know that the conclusion of these seven thunders, whatever they are, it is linked now to the end of prophetic time, right? We don't know what the end of prophetic time is, but we could calculate it, which we will do in shortly, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's go to verse 7. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. You had something to say?
Uh, oh, me no,
Oh,
writing.
oh, okay, right. So let's touch on verse 7 here. Verse 7 gives us a little bit more information. Now listen to this. And I'm giving you clues. These are the clues here, right? For this verse, Revelation 1:12, that's a clue. And then this picture here, the seven churches of Revelation. So I'm going to ask a question after, but I'm giving you the clues up front. So on the premise that these are these this event, whatever these seven thunders are, is linked to the end of prophetic time, verse 7 now says, but in the days of the voice of the seventh angel, when he shall begin to sound, the mysteries of God should be finished, as he had declared, to his servants, the prophets. So, in the days of the seventh angel, so we want to know what the seventh angel is. When he shall begin to sound, the mystery of God should be finished. It should be known. It should be accomplished. What mystery? Did God hide something from someone? Did he seal something? Yes. The previous verses says that he sealed the seven thunders. So, in the time of the seventh angel, we will understand what the seven thunders are. So, what God is alluding to is that this prophecy that he hid and he told John to intentionally to seal, it can only be understood in hindsight. For those who don't know what hindsight is, it is looking back and scrutinizing what has happened and then understanding. So this prophecy could only be discovered in hindsight. And God has set it so. He has told us about it here. Now, I want to ask a question. This seventh angel, what is this? What is this alluding to?
Jesus.
Somebody said something?
Is it the 17? I don't. Is it alluding to Jesus? I'm not sure.
No.
Okay.
Revelation
When you
chapter
say
1, verse
morning,
20. Morning?
when you say it could only be understood in hindsight,
Mm-hmm.
what I get in is that an event took place
Yeah.
before,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which it sounds to me like the great disappointment.
No, we taking it step by step, right? We taking it
Okay.
step by step because we want to let the Bible tell us what this is. So let me just step back a little bit. So we know the seven thunders are some event. It was sealed up, right? Could I just take a time to make my mouse a little bit bigger? You all mind if I do that?
Don't go ahead. Some revelation. Yes.
Right, so I could point and you all could follow the mouse. Right. So the seven thunders, we know that they are some event. Now, unfortunately, they were not explained to us as previously the seven thunders, the seven seals and so forth. They were explained because John was told to seal it up. Do not reveal what they are. But the seven thunders or the revelation of the seven thunders are linked to the end of prophetic time. We are given confirmation that in the days of the seventh angel, and I'm giving you this is literally the clue here. If it is you read this, you get the answer what the seven thunders are. When he shall begin to sound, the mystery of God shall be finished. So only
Jesus.
in this, only the seventh angel, oh, let me just give you all it. The
Mhm.
seventh angel is linked to the seventh church dispensation. Remember the stars that were in God's hand? Revelation 1, chapter 2 says, what are concerning the stars? The stars are the angels to the seven churches. So these were the clues here that I gave you all. Revelation 1:20, and then the seven churches. So only in the seventh church dispensation that we encountered in Revelation 1, 2, and 3, these were the seven churches. Only in that dispensation will the mystery of God be finished, meaning that the seven seals which are sealed, it will come to fruition looking back because it must take place at the time no longer or at the end of prophetic time. Now, there's a deeper mystery here as well, and we're going to look at. So yes, they will understand what the events are. The seven thunders. They will understand at the time of the seventh angel, or what this really means, based on Revelation 1:20, it's the seventh church dispensation, right? But they will also understand what is the mystery of God, which Paul will tell us as well. So it's two things that they would encounter, but those two things are kind of wrapped and sealed together, right? So the seventh angel belongs to the seventh church dispensation, which is Laodicea, right?
Okay.
Mhm.
So only in this period would that sealed prophecy be revealed. God has set it that way. This is why he told us about it. He said to John, seal it up, right? He says it is linked to the time of the end, and only the at the period of the time of the seventh angel would this mystery be known, right? But Paul now brings to view some more information in relation to the mystery of God. He gives us a deeper understanding. Now, we can't go through everything, so I summarize some of the stuff. But I'm going to call the text, so probably in your personal time you could read it, right? Colossians
Mhm.
1:27 says, "To whom God would make known what is the riches of the mystery among the Gentiles, which is Christ in you, the hope of glory." And this is a text that we know. This is Christ's righteousness that is dwelling in us and so forth, right? First Timothy chapter 3, verse 16. "And without controversy, great is the mystery of godliness. God was manifest in the flesh, justified in the spirit, seen of angels, preached unto the Gentiles, believed on in the world, received up in glory." So it speaks of Christ as the sin pardoning Savior. Right? So this is the crux of the matter here. Now, Colossians chapter 2, verses 1 and 2, and verses 11 to 17. So I just summed it up, but again, you all could read this, right? So I just summed it up here. So it speaks about understanding the mysteries of God, obviously. Um, Death through baptism, being forgiven of all trespasses, removing the ordinances of Moses. Now, a lot of Christians they misinterpret what this is, and they say that well, all they see is that the law has been removed, but actually
Yeah.
the ordinances, the feast days, that temple service where they would bring a lamb and
Mhm.
slay it, and all of the the holy days, as the book of Leviticus says, or these feast days that are associated with the temple service, was that was pointing to a greater meaning. So Paul is saying that this has been removed because the true Lamb of God came. He came, he died, fulfilling that, right? So this points to a greater meaning as highlighted in the book of Hebrews. So Paul dedicated an entire book to these ordinances, explaining to the Hebrew readers and by extension us what these things pointed to. It says this book points, it's supposed to be points to the priestly ministry of Christ in the heavenly sanctuary. So again, the mystery of God relates to Christ, yes, not only of his righteousness, but the heavenly sanctuary and the ministration that is taking place there. 1 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 7 says, but we speak the wisdom of God in a mystery, even the hidden wisdom which God ordained before the world unto our glory. So before the worlds were created, he had implemented a system whereby which any of his creatures would fall, there would be a sacrifice available to save them, right? This is why we say before the foundations of the world, a lamb was slain, right? So this is basically what the mystery of God is. So back to Revelation chapter 10, verse 7. So we have a little context here, right? So it says, but in the days of the voice of the seventh angel, so the Bible is alluding to the Laodicean dispensation, when he shall begin to sound, the mystery of God should be finished, which is the gospel, understanding of the gospel, and the righteousness of Christ in connection with his ministration in the heavenly sanctuary. So this is what the mystery of God is. Paul speaks extensively on it, and it also means that they would understand what the seven thunders are as well, right? So let's take a little breather here and review what we would have gone through. And I'm being very cognizant of the time as well. John sees a mighty angel. This mighty angel is Jesus. Jesus had this steel book. This book was the prophetic book of Daniel, and his foot, the proclamation of the message, was upon the sea, and now it was upon the earth as well. Jesus reveals the seven thunders, which are prophetic events, to John, then instructs him not to write them down. He points John, and by extension the readers, to the end of prophetic time. This time is linked to the seven thunders and the conclusion of the prophetic events. And 6, which we just understood there, Jesus points John to the seventh church dispensation when the mystery of God will be finished or understood, right? Which is the understanding of the seven thunders and the understanding and proclamation of the righteousness of Christ in connection with the heavenly sanctuary. I want to pause there. Is there any questions? Is there anything that needs to be clarified this morning? All
No, I'm
right.
good. Yeah.
Okay.
Is
Great.
is the is the mystery of God Christ in us?
Yes.
Christ choosing us special
So
people?
Paul gives many definitions. Yes, and Colossians 1:27 says, yes, Christ in you. Now, that is a vague Christ's righteousness. But what he was really trying to purport was the system. There's a system which God would have set up to redeem man. And all of this is wrapped up in the mystery of God, right? 1 Corinthians chapter 2:7. But we speak of the wisdom of God in a mystery, even the hidden wisdom, which God ordained before the worlds unto our glory. Exodus chapter 15, verse 17, it speaks to God creating a sanctuary in heaven, and that sanctuary is linked to our inheritance. Now, this when we look at the mystery of God, this is something that was set up before sin ever occurred. Right? So this is why it's a mystery. We weren't there, no angels was there. It is a mystery. God would have consulted with his son, and his son would have stepped up to the plate and say, here, what if any creature were to sin, I would die for them. So in a
mm,
nutshell, this is what the mystery of God is. And obviously there are other things that comes out of it. The Holy Spirit, we are imbued with the Holy Spirit, we seek righteousness, and all of this. But in a nutshell, it is Christ and his ministration in the heavenly sanctuary. Right? So this is basically what the mystery of God is. Right?
amen.
Let's move forward. Right. So there's only 11 verses in Revelation 10. So we're going to read to verses 8 to 11. Right.
Yeah.
And it reads, and the voice which I heard from heaven spake unto me again and said, go and take the little book which is open in the hand of the angel which standeth upon the sea and upon the earth. And I went unto the angel and said unto him, give me the little book. And he said unto me, take it and eat it up, and it shall make thy belly bitter, but it shall be in thy mouth sweet as honey. And I took the little book out of the angel's hand, and I ate it up, and it was in my mouth sweet as honey. And as soon as I ate it, my belly was bitter. And he said unto me, thou must prophesy again before many people, nations, tongues, and kings. So it's a very strange vision that John experienced here. I I don't think I've ever seen anybody eat a book, but John was told to eat a book, to eat it up. And somehow this book, which is the book of Daniel, would be sweet in his mouth. So maybe God would have placed some honey on it, or I don't know. But as he digested it was to be bitter. So again, we have the Bible to explain itself. So let's see what it means to eat up a book and what it means to, for that book to be sweet as well, right? The book of Jeremiah, chapter 15, verse 16 says, thy words were found, and I did eat them, and thy words were unto me the joy and rejoicing of mine heart. For I am called by thy name, O Lord God of hosts. So, to eat a book really means to study.
Study. Yeah.
Yes, amen. Right?
Mhm.
And from studying, there's a level of joy and rejoicing that comes to heart. Psalms even emphasizes this joy by linking it to being sweet. How sweet are thy words unto my teeth, yea, sweeter than honey to my mouth. Right? So it must be that John here is studying the book of Daniel, and the study of that book brings some level of joy and excitement that is likened to being sweet as honey. But it must be that the fulfillment, as he digests that book, the fulfillment of that book brings bitterness to
Yeah.
John. Now,
Yeah.
in throughout the Bible, God uses his prophets in a very strange way to express an experience, an experience that his people would go through. Um,
Mm,
is it Hosea? Hosea, he told him to take a wife, and his wife did
mhm,
all sorts of ills to him. But it
mhm,
showed God's people's experience with himself, with God, right? Now, John also is denoting like manner. And I want us to watch Ezekiel, and we're gonna get some a reference point here, right? It is a symbolic vision. Now, Ezekiel and many other prophets had vision, were instructed to do things like that, But Ezekiel, I think it's very easy to capture to catch as well, right? So Ezekiel chapter 4, we're going to read verses 7 and then 10 to 13, right? God instructs Ezekiel to do something, but what he instructed him to do was supposed to be what the children of God would go through, right? It says, therefore thou shalt set thy face towards the siege of Jerusalem. So again, Babylon was coming. Ezekiel was warning them, and so forth. So God now told him to do something. And thy arm shall be uncovered, and thou shalt be uncovered, and thou shalt prophesy against it. And thy meat, which is an old English word for food, which thou shalt eat, shall be by weight. 20 shekels a day from time to time shall thou eat. So there's a scarcity of food, right? Thou shalt drink also water by measure. So there's scarcity of water as well. And thou shalt eat it with barley cakes, and thou shalt bake it with the dung, which is uh, fecal matter, that cometh out of man in their sight.
Mhm.
So I want to pause here. So this hardship that Ezekiel is seeking to portray. So he was to eat bread, a little bit of bread, drink a little bit of water, and God told him, "Here, what I need you to bake some barley cakes, but don't use barley. I need you to use human dung, right?"
And feces. Yeah.
Now, why is God telling him to do this? Verse 13 explains, and the Lord said, even thus shall the children of Israel eat their defiled bread among the Gentiles, whether I will drive them. So, this thing that God told Ezekiel to do was supposed to be the experience of God's people. You all got that?
The
Yeah.
Right.
experience.
So, God uses this style of writing. He would tell his prophet, do this. But what the prophet does is to be the experience of God's people. So in like manner, what God is trying to portray to us, the readers, they're God's people at a specific time. They would eat up this little book, which is the book of Daniel. It will be a sweet experience as they discover what the book of Daniel entails, right? But the fulfillment of the expectations, it will be bitter. It will be
Uh,
bitter.
yeah.
And then they, God's people, must do it all over again. They must prophesy again before many people, nation, tongues, and kings. So we want to look now at no, let me just pause there. You all have any questions that you all want to ask? Anything that needs to be cleared up?
Is that bitterness when Christ died?
No, no.
No. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So we're gonna see what the bitterness is. Not this Friday because the study is a bit long, and I really
Mm.
don't want to go too long because um I really want you all to grasp this because this chapter is such an important chapter for us, right? But
Oh,
we will grasp what that bitterness is. It is an experience that God's people go through. Um, Let me just so Ezekiel
yes.
was to do something and it represented what God's people would experience. In like manner, John was to eat this little book, and we were given a time frame as well when the seven thunders would culminate. It would culminate at the end of prophetic time, and we're going to calculate that shortly. So it means, therefore, that sometime close to the culmination of that prophetic time, a people now, God's people, would eat up this little book, which is the prophecies of Daniel. The expectation of that book will be sweet as honey, but the fulfillment of that experience will be a bitter experience, and then they have to do it all over again. And we're going to see what this means shortly, right? So Revelation 7, 6, sorry, 6, 5 to 7.
One
What of
quick question, Brother Kendall.
uh-huh.
A little bit out of context here, but human dung, was there a description for what that signified biblically in terms of
No, it was
mixing
he
it? Or is
no,
it
he was told to literally use human dung. But
Hmm.
it was
Yes, sir.
again sorry. And the reason why I use that because it is a kind of startling thing for God to see. But what happened? Ezekiel cried out. He said, Lord, why human dung?
Yeah.
He cried out, and God said, okay, here what to do. Use cow dung.
Oh.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it didn't symbolize it was
literal?
he was literally supposed to do
Okay.
that. But that
Hmm.
experience was to show how let me use the word
Desperate
bitter.
the situation would have been.
Yes, that is
Got you.
how bad the situation was to become for the children of Israel.
Hmm.
So that is
Hmm.
yes. So we're going to calculate now the end of prophetic time, right? Because we know that the seven thunders culminates at the end of prophetic time, right? So this experience that John goes through, which is an expression of what the children of God would go through it culminates at the end of prophetic time. So we would see what time frame the fulfillment of this bitterness must conclude, right? So we know that at the commencement of Artaxerxes in 457 BC, that command to restore and rebuild Jerusalem went forth, and we know that the entirety of that prophetic line is 2300 days or 2300 prophetic years. Now that will bring us, if we do the maths, that will bring us to 1843. But we have a problem there, and even this problem next week, we will see that God's people encounter the same problem. The Bible is so amazing. Now, this calculation was done on an algebraic scale, meaning that you have your negative numbers to your positive numbers. This is how addition, subtraction, and stuff works. But with time, you don't have BC would be negative, and then AD would be positive. You don't have a 0 year. Let's move forward. On the algebraic scale, there is a 0 year. So when you transition from -1, you will have 0, then +1, 2, 3, 4 going up the road. But with time, there isn't a 0 year. So to compensate for that, you have to add that one back to the number that you calculate here, which would bring us to 1844, right? So because it's time we're dealing with. So we have a time. So we know that the fulfillment of prophetic time ends in 1844, right? So let's review here. He saw Jesus. He was this mighty angel. He had the little book in his hand. His feet, which denotes, based on Isaiah 52, is the proclamation of the gospel, was upon the sea, as it was in Daniel, but in Revelation, now it's upon the earth. Right? Jesus revealed the seven thunders, which are prophetic events to John, and instructed him, do not write them down. Right? He points John, and by extension, the readers, to the end of prophetic time, which brings us to 1844. This time is linked to the seven thunders and the conclusion of the prophetic events. Whatever that event is, that event must conclude. It must come to its fulfillment in 1844.
Hmm.
Jesus points, and this, boy, this Bible is sweet. 1844, right? Jesus points John to the seventh angel. He said in the day of the seventh angel, they would understand. We now understand that seventh angel points to the seventh church dispensation, which is Laodicea, right? When the mystery of God, the things that were sealed, will be finished or will be understood. So I just put a note under here, understanding the seven thunders. So in hindsight, they would understand. And the understanding also of the righteousness of Christ in connection with the heavenly sanctuary. John represents a people, that's God's people, who will experience great joy by eating the prophetic book, but the fulfillment of this event will lead to bitterness. This bittersweet experience culminates in 1844. I'm looking at my time. So you all, let's pause. Any questions? Are you all understanding what Revelation 10 is bringing to view?
So for clarity, it's only the seventh church, which is Laodicea, which is us, could have understood what took place.
Correct. That is how God
Right.
set it up.
Set
God
it up,
set it
right?
up like that.
Right.
And I believe if he did reveal the seven thunders to John, probably, they would have known and avoided it, but it was not, they could not avoid it. He wanted it like that. This is why he hid it. He hid those seven thunders because they had to go through that experience, whatever that experience is, which we will not reveal this Friday. We will not reveal it, right? We're just looking at the raw information, and next week now we're going to look at what actually happened in history, right? So nobody can say we're speaking our own words. All we have done here is just look at the Bible and what the Bible has said. This is all we've been looking at so far, right? Anyone else? All right. And again, you all could stop me if it is something jumps to mind. You all could stop me whenever you feel like, because I know sometimes the question may flee from you. So once you have a question, stop me and I'll give way to your question, right? Um so it's almost 5 o'clock. I probably would go just a little bit again and we will conclude because I don't want to overload you with too much information, right? So we're going to look at what is the earth. We know what the sea is, right? We know what the sea is, but we want to understand what is the earth. Symbolically, prophetically, what does the earth symbolize? Because we saw earlier on that in the visions of Daniel, Christ's foot was only upon the sea, which is the waters of rivers. All of this represents the same thing. But in the book of Revelation, his foot also now is upon the earth, and that also has that is also very significant. So we want to find out what is the earth. Oh, actually, I plan to stop here. So I want to ask you all, do you all want to continue or do you want to stop here and discuss?
And I think we could stop and discuss. Good morning, everybody. Because
Right.
I'm sitting here and my head is spinning. I still on the down part.
Is still on the?
The down.
Oh, right. So good. Because I didn't want to
You don't want to
burden
go
too much.
over. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. And I did plan to stop here because from here we're going to go into some deep waters. So let's stop and let's review probably 10 minutes. So let me go back to, hope I didn't pass it. Ezekiel, looking for Ezekiel.
Yeah, Ezekiel
Yeah,
4.
probably I passed it. Yeah, I passed it. So let me go forward, right? So we understand what the eating up mean and the sweet as honey. Right, Ezekiel. So throughout the Bible, we could call Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Hosea, many of the prophets, God will tell them, do this or do that. And the thing that they did would represent something that the children of Israel would go through. Right? In like manner, Ezekiel was told to cut back on how much you're eating. Hear what? The bread that you usually eat a little bit less. The water that you usually drink a little bit less. And I want you to do something special. I want you to bake barley cakes with human dung, right? And what was this supposed to symbolize? It is explained in verse 13. And the Lord said, even thus shall the children of Israel eat their defiled bread among the Gentiles, whether I will drive them. So what Ezekiel was doing was supposed to be the experience of the children of Israel.
Yes.
Right?
So, you know what came to my mind? That even in this, God, how to put it, boy, God, for want of a better expression, felt sorry for us because to bake something with human dung,
Mm-hmm.
that have a, is not a funny scent, you know. That will
Yeah.
smell real bad.
Because Ezekiel,
We'll go
he
back.
actually, he actually, he actually said, "Lord, I can't do that." But
Yes.
God just wanted to show how severe their situation would be for
Would be,
rebellion. So I don't think obviously he didn't want him to eat human dung. He just used that, right? Just as he did with Moses. He said, "Here, what I could wipe out these people, and I'll make you a nation." He was testing Moses there. He didn't. It wasn't his plan to do that, But Moses pleaded for the people of God in like manner with this human dung. He knew it would have defiled Ezekiel, and Ezekiel mentioned that, and God said, "Okay, use another source." You know, so
yeah.
this represents the experience that God's people would go through. And in like manner, John's vision, or the experience that John is going through here, the eating of the little book and it being sweet in his mouth and then bitter, it points to the fact that God's people would go through something similar. Um, the good thing with Revelation, we are actually given like time frames, right? So we know
Yes.
whatever this experience is, this experience must be completed, or it culminates in 1844. Not only that, based on the Bible, I think it was 5 to 7, we know that in the seventh church dispensation, this is when the seventh angel, right? In that dispensation, they would have an understanding what the mystery of God is. So they would look back and understand what the seven thunders are. This is the
Listen.
only way they could understand it in hindsight, by looking back.
Okay.
Right? This is how God designed it. But in the mystery of God, not is the mystery of God, sorry, is not only understanding the seven thunders. Paul brings to view that the mystery of God also is the righteousness of Christ in connection with the heavenly sanctuary, right?
Yes.
So they would understand that simultaneously as they look back at that bittersweet experience, they would understand now that, hey, so this is what this event is. And wow, Christ's righteousness, and somehow it connected with the heavenly sanctuary, which we haven't reached as yet, so I wouldn't jump on it, right?
Yes. Yes.
So it represents an experience that God's people would go through. So are there any questions at this time? I'll scroll back just in case something pricks the mind, right? So to eat up the book, it means to study, right? Seventh angel, which is the Laodicean dispensation, the mystery of God, the righteousness of Christ in connection with the heavenly sanctuary. We studied that as well. The culmination of the seven thunders must come to a conclusion at the end of prophetic time, or when there's time no longer, which we just discovered is in 1844, right? And we got that from Daniel 8:14 and Daniel 9:24 and 25, right? Because in Daniel 8:14 we were given the 2300 days or 2300 years prophecy. And the commencement of that prophecy began in 457. The angel told Daniel when it will begin. Right? Know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the command to restore and to rebuild Jerusalem. Right? Artaxerxes gave that command, which is found in Ezra, Ezra chapter 6, 7, and portions of 9. right? And you could just go into history and understand that as well.
And
Okay.
I'm hearing someone calling there.
yes, yes. If someone should ask, what exactly is 1844 synonymous with or to in present time? What would be the response to that?
Now, derived from what we have just studied or based on my knowledge?
Well, maybe a combination of both, because remember in your explanation, you said it culminates in 1844.
Mhm.
Someone could say something like, this has already happened. This is times past. So, with reference to that, and what we know is to come again, is this like reliving, or whatever happened will happen again? So would that time come again where 1844 will be played over, or is it symbolic of what is to come to whichever extent? So you
Okay.
could mix it in whichever way, but we
Yeah,
always
very.
we often hear things like that, because people, they may be confused, or they may
Mhm.
try to tell you that, okay, you ever hear that we are living in, and we don't really have a heaven to come already. We're already living in. You understand what I'm saying? So it is
Yeah, yeah,
often necessary to understand in order to explain. Yeah,
right.
some
Very,
clarity there.
very, very good question. No, this the 1844, which we saw from the Bible, we stuck only to the Bible, right? So no one can say we're pulling this from here, there, and anywhere. We saw that through the sealed book, which was opened, which is the book of Daniel. And now, probably those who are viewing, who will be viewing on video, they would not have the privilege as you all, because you all would have gone through the entirety of Daniel. That was done offline. Well, not recorded. It wasn't recorded, sorry. Right? So you all have the benefit of going through from Daniel 1 to Daniel 12, right? The viewers would not have that. So you will have a bit of an advantage. So we know that the book of Daniel, portions of the book of Daniel was sealed. And we discovered now that there will be a group of people, based on the study that we just did, who will come to a knowledge of the little book, which is the book of Daniel. It will be sweet, meaning that they studied it, uh, the experience will be sweet, and then it will be bitter. The culmination of that event terminates in 1844. Now, this event, it is history, right? We are in 2025, so it is history. It will not be repeated, right? But why this chapter is so important, and I'm just going to preempt the entire study here. I'm going to preempt everything. And let's look at Revelation chapter 2 only. This little book, which is the book of Daniel, we went through that today, this morning. It is now opened, meaning the revelation that was sealed away from Daniel is now open. He, meaning Jesus, had set his foot upon the seas. We saw that Isaiah 52 speaks to this as the proclamation of the gospel. That's how we summed it up. And we saw that the sea was a geographical location from whence this gospel was proclaimed. I want to ask a question. If God had set up the proclamation of his gospel in the seas, who was to proclaim his gospel?
All of us.
So, were you okay? So if so, were you in the time period of the sea when Babylon, Medo Persia, Greek, and Rome came to leadership or rulership? And were you in this geographical location here? Remember, we
Oh,
saw.
no, no.
Right. So let's go back now. No, so God now would have had a people to execute this work. And based on Daniel, we know that they were rebellious. And God made nations come and persecute them. But still under persecution, they were supposed to still do their work. Daniel, let me go here. Let me go forward a bit. This is the this is the province here, right? This is the sea here, right? Daniel says that these beasts came out of the sea. So when we say a sea, don't think of the ocean, don't think of the beach, think of a geographical location. We have Italy. Rome came from here and conquered the entirety of the world. Babylon came and
Yeah,
conquered all of this. Medo Persia conquered all of this. This is what we call the sea. And based on Revelations 17:15, all it means is a highly populated area, places where there are people, nations, tongues, etc. And right here in this square box, you see something called Jerusalem.
Yeah,
God's
of
people were here.
course. The
God,
apostles.
God's people were here. They were the ones chosen to proclaim the gospel,
Mm.
right? So if now God's foot is now on the earth, it means, yes, a different geographical location, but there's a proclamation that must take place. And Daniel confirms this because we went through Daniel chapter 9, the 70-week prophecy, where the Jews were cut off. The Jews were cut off. So yesterday, mainstream people still look at the Jews as God's people, but brethren, that is not biblically sound. That is not biblically sound. A lot of people, especially with our cousins or religious cousins out there, they don't know the prophecies or their Bibles to know that the Jews are no longer God's people as a denominated nation. God would have passed on that mantle to the apostles that would have gone through all of Europe and Asia and Africa. And again, I'm preempting the study. And then something would to happen that would have caused God's people to go into hiding. So God's church was in the wilderness. And the earth now had to come and help the church. I'm preempting the study. So you know what's going to happen next week. The earth now was supposed to help God's people. So God's people would have moved from one geographical location to a next. Thus, the proclamation of the gospel was in another geographical location. So this chapter
Oh, right.
sets
Amen.
up,
Yeah.
it sets up that.
No understand. Yeah.
Yeah, it sets it up. And God is so kind and wise. He gives us time to work with, So this isn't just random, like, he gives us time. He says here what? The fulfillment of this will be in 1844. And as we go forward, there are more times that we would add to it to really um, lock down into it a little bit more. But for now, this is just like a setup. So we know the basics. We know the basics, right? We understand that the understanding of the book of Daniel comes to fruition. God now stands on the earth. He always stood on the sea. We saw that in the book of Daniel, right? But now he stands on the earth, meaning the proclamation of the gospel must go out from the earth, right? These prophetic events were sealed away, but in 1844 they will be revealed under the seventh church dispensation. They will be revealed, right? So that's it in a nutshell. Any other questions, comments that you have at this time?